In the past 24 hours, there's been a lot of talk in the media about Marcellus Williams, convicted of fatally stabbing former newspaper reporter Felicia Gayle in her home in 1998. Williams was executed by lethal injection in Missouri last night.
Missouri executed a death row inmate named Marcellus Williams by lethal injection. Now, Williams was put to death over the 1998 murder of newspaper reporter Felicia Gayle, and the execution coming hours after the U.S. Supreme Court denied a stay of execution, just a day after the state's governor and the Supreme Court both denied clemency to Williams as well. And all this after a prosecutor from the original trial said Williams was innocent, claiming no evidence actually tied him to the crime.
They had executed him, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that they executed Marcellus Williams knowing the evidence.
Well, part of the reason,
thereof.
and I think part of the reason you couldn't believe that, Simone, is because we don't want to believe it of the United States Supreme Court. I thought that Dahlia Lithwick, Mark Joseph Stern made an amazing point in Slate. There's just the title of this piece, Pay Attention to Who Benefits from the Conservative Justices' Selective Empathy. There is more incontrovertible evidence of Trump's guilt in the January 6 cases than there was of Marcellus Williams' guilt in a murder. Look at who it is they feel empathy for. That's the tell.
Marcellus Williams, a name that has become synonymous with controversy, racial bias, and the flaws in the criminal justice system. His story begins in 1998 with an arrest that would change the course of his life forever. Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into true crime causes that spark national debates. Today, we're going to unravel the case of Marcellus Williams, a man that was convicted of murder and sentenced to death and then executed. His guilt has been fiercely disputed. Was justice served, or did the justice system fail him? You already know how I feel about this situation. We're gonna start straight from the beginning. And I wanna give a special shout out to my old friend of mine. His name was Jerry Givens. I'm gonna play y'all a little clip of him real quick. But this is what Jerry Givens did for a living. When I first got one of my first main jobs that I had back in the day, he was actually one of the ones that trained me. He was the first man to actually train me on driving trucks.
To the warden, and he's on the phone with the governor's office, and he give you the nod. Let's go on with the execution. Then the button is pushed.
Jerry Givens pushed that button perhaps more times than anyone else, presiding over 62 executions in the Commonwealth of Virginia. In a turn, today he opposes capital punishment, thanks to his own eventual doubts about a process he came to know with such intimacy.
Once you have execution is a smell down there from burning flesh. And if you have a mustache, a hair features, in your nose, you can smell it. So you have to try to wash yourself real good, trying to get there. And it might be psychological, but you can still smell that, greasy smell.
Given 17 years as Virginia's executioner began October 12, 1984, with the electrocution of Linwood Briley, one of three brothers who were part of the gang that killed at least 11 people.
He told Reverend Brown that he wanted to be baptized, and we took him upstairs and we had prayer, and the guys sung a little song or something, and they baptized him.
You sat there and prayed with him?
Yeah.
Knowing you were about to kill him?
Yeah, but, well, not just me, the state of Virginia was going to kill him.
Understood, but you're the man who had to press the button.
Yes, right.
Was that hard the first time?
In a sense it was, and if I would sit here and tell you it wasn't hard, I'd be lying to you, and I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
I felt a little motivated to do this, but we just going to do a little unraveling about this actual story. So let's get it, man. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It all began on August 11th, 1998, in University City, Missouri. Felicia Gayle, a 42-year-old former reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, was brutally murdered in her home. She was stabbed 43 times in what authorities described a violent burglary gone wrong. Now, Felicia was well loved in her community, and her death sent shockwaves through the entire neighborhood. But the investigation quickly turned murky when the police arrested Marcellus Williams, a man with no direct ties to Felicia. Now, how did he actually end up getting arrested? Marcellus Williams was arrested in 1999, more than a year after the murder, following a tip from an informant. But here's where things get complicated. No physical evidence linked Williams to the crime scene. Investigators relied heavily on statements from two individuals who claimed Marcellus confessed to them. One of these individuals was a jailhouse informant, a type of witness whose credibility has often been questioned in wrongful conviction cases. The other, Williams' former girlfriend, who reportedly had a financial incentive to testify against him. Despite the lack of direct evidence, prosecutors pushed forward. The most critical piece of physical evidence, a kitchen knife believed to be the murder weapon, did not have Williams' DNA on it. Instead, a series of circumstantial evidence and testimony sealed his fate. The trial painted a damning picture of Williams, but what the jury didn't hear was just as important. Allegations of racial bias, the unreliability of witness testimonies, and questions about whether exculpatory evidence was withheld all cast a shadow over this case. 2 years later, in 2001, Marcellus was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. But as his execution date approached, advocates and experts raised their alarm. DNA testing on the knife handle excluded Williams as a contributor. This was evidence that could not be ignored. This sparked a national debate. Was Williams innocent? And if so, how did he end up on death row? In 2017, then Governor Eric Greitens issued a stay of execution and appointed a board to review the evidence. Up until his death, Williams remained in legal limbo, awaiting justice. Marcellus Williams always maintained his innocence. His case raised troubling questions about the reliability of eyewitness testimony, the role of systemic bias, and the limitations of forensic science. Now, as you all know, Marcellus Williams was executed on September 24, 2024 in Missouri by lethal injection.
Since 2001, Georgia has used the method of lethal injection to execute prisoners sentenced to death. From the moment an Oklahoma medical examiner created the first lethal injection cocktail of 3 drugs in 1977, the moral and ethical concerns over how prisoners are executed have not subsided. And as several states, including Georgia, have switched over the years from a 3-drug procedure to a 1-drug procedure, questions continue. So, how do they work? The 3-drug protocol begins with a fast-moving anesthetic to render the person unconscious. Initially, that was the barbiturate sodium thiopental. That drug is no longer available in the United States for executions, so it has been replaced with the barbiturate pentobarbital. In a clinical setting, pentobarbital has been given gradually to stop a seizure. The second drug is pancuronium bromide, which surgeons use to effectively paralyze voluntary muscles all over the body, like the eyelids, biceps, and abdominal muscles, so they don't move during surgery. In an execution, pancuronium bromide is given in a dosage high enough to stop not only those muscles, but also the lungs and diaphragm. The third drug is potassium chloride. Doctors use it to treat people with dangerously low potassium levels, which can cause the heart muscles to malfunction. For executions, potassium chloride is given in a dose strong enough to stop the heart completely. All of these drugs are followed by a flush of saline solution to speed the flow of the drugs through the body. With the 1-drug method, which Georgia now uses, the sole drug, according to the state, is pentobarbital. In a clinical setting, pentobarbital is given gradually until it stops a seizure. In executions, pentobarbital causes the eyelids to close within seconds. The neurons in the brain stop firing. That then makes the chest wall stop moving, the lungs stop breathing, blood vessels to dilate, and the heart muscles to weaken until the entire cardiovascular system shuts down.
And if you're asking me, he was at peace. I'm gonna actually play y'all a little clip about what he actually had to say about it before his injection.
Understand that, that justice has been denied. But you gotta remember the history of this country in regards to the justice system. It's full of examples of using law as a tool of oppression. Even though man may be tyrannical at times and very oppressive in the systems that he erects, all these connections with my son and all these other connections that other people have joined forth, that gives me a good feeling and allows me to be able to see the power of Allah manifesting constantly on earth and being played out right before my eyes, you know. It makes me recognize, you know what I'm saying, really reflect, you know, not to be pessimistic, you know, but to understand that, you know, there is good, you know, in the world, you know, and amongst people, you know. I'm at peace still, you know, no matter what, because of my faith, and I thank Allah for that, for His calmness that He has sent down to me. Whatever Allah determines, you know what I'm saying, I'm satisfied with it. There's a little supplication that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he used to say, "Oh Allah, if life is good for me, then give me life. If death is good for me, then give me death." You know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel. You know what I'm saying? I say the same supplication. So yeah, I'm at peace, of course.
Marcellus Williams' case attracted significant controversy due to the evidence suggesting his potential innocence, including DNA from the crime scene that matched another man. Despite calls from his prosecutor, defense teams, and activists to halt the execution, the Missouri Supreme Court and Governor Mike Parson refused to intervene, citing that the judicial process had been thoroughly exhausted. His execution highlights the ongoing debates over racial bias and the reliability of the death penalty system in the U.S. How often innocent people are executed in the U.S. is challenging, as definitive proof of innocence often emerges only after execution, and many cases remain unresolved. However, estimates suggest a troubling error rate in capital punishment cases. A 2014 study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences estimated that 4.1% of individuals sentenced to death in the U.S. are likely innocent. I wouldn't care if it was 1%. The fact that it's 4.1% is just mind-blowing to me. While some of these individuals are exonerated before the execution, others are not. Since 1973, over 190 individuals on death row have been exonerated in the U.S. according to the Death Penalty Information Center. This indicates a significant risk of wrongful convictions in capital cases. We can even look at other cases like this man right here, Todd Willingham in 2004, and others that have raised concerns about wrongful executions. Willingham was executed despite later evidence suggesting the arson that killed his children may not have occurred as initially claimed. Factors such as unreliable witness testimony, false confessions, inadequate defense, and prosecutorial misconduct contribute to wrongful convictions. Racial bias and geographic disparities also play a role. While the exact number of wrongful executions is unknown, the combination of documented exonerations and the known flaws in the system raises concerns about the reliability of the death penalty. This has fueled calls for reform and abolition in many states. For more detailed data, the Death Penalty Information Center provides ongoing analysis. Marcellus Williams' story highlights the cracks in a system that holds the power of life and death. What do you think? What are we going to do? I'm just here to spread information. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.